There's a new season of Gumball! There's a new season of Gumball! There's 20 episodes out so far, so the first half of the season, and they're available to watch on Hulu in the US. I'm obviously not American, so I don't have actual access to the episodes, but I did watch them on a Discord livestream in the Elmore Plus server, and it was really fun to watch it and be able to talk about it with other people in the chat. I love watch parties. I think this is the first video I'm scripting before I've even got footage for it. Like, I have no idea what I'm speaking over right now. I hope future me is making really nice art. What I think of the season overall so far, I think it's pretty on par with the rest of the show. The humor feels very similar, the messaging is similar, stuff like that. I think the new voice actors did an amazing job. I'm pretty used to them already, especially Gumball. I think I said holy animation once every episode or two. Like, there's so much going on in the best possible way. For context, by the way, I have an animation degree. I've studied animation on a professional level. I really love animation. Gumball in particular is the kind of thing we would have studied. Like, I remember we made sketchbooks and had to include a bunch of references and inspiration for one of our projects, and most people, if not all, included Gumball in theirs. The animation in this show is so good, and it's kind of part of what the show is known for. Anyway, the show! I really liked it. I'm a massive fan of Gumball. It's what first gained me any real traction on social media, and it's a show I've fully grown up with. It came out when I was 6, which is when I started watching it, and I'm still here at 20 waiting for the new stuff. Since August 2020, I have watched the show 38 times, and I'm currently on my 39th rewatch. Yes, I've been keeping count. It started as a running joke, but I kept counting for so long that I think it's funnier to keep counting, even though the joke ended a while ago. Anyway, if I tell you I know this show, I know this show. Probably the only thing I'm more familiar with than Gumball is Undertale the Musical, and I'm very familiar with that. I'm going to talk about the things I think it did well and things I think it could have done better, but like woven in with the opinions I've been seeing online so that I can discuss both without repeating myself, and I'll try and go in order of the episodes for the most part. Most of the opinions I've been seeing on Instagram are pretty positive, and I'm deep in the Gumball fandom on there. In 2020 I joined a fan group called the Protection Squad, and we all claimed Gumball characters. I was Leslie. And this was a big group, by the way. We were all teenagers and completely obsessed with the show. We were the biggest fandom group on the platform, I think, and pretty much every big fan of the show was aware of us. Even some of the show staff, like Richard Overall and most of the voice actors were aware of us. Duke Cutler, who briefly voiced Gumball, actually joined someone in the group's livestream once, and we spent most of the time talking to him instead of focusing on the livestream. But that was loads of fun. Anyway, I'm rambling. All that to say, it's definitely not a case of what I'm seeing on Instagram being entirely from casual fans. My fellow Gumball obsessed people have been posting their long and overall positive reviews on their stories, and I've been talking to a bunch of my mutuals about the show. I've actually seen people say that this is their favourite season so far. It's not mine, but I can personally see the appeal of something being new after so long. Like, I've seen the show 38 flipping times, so obviously a new season like this, which provides something new, is going to appeal a lot. I think the season in general feels like a mix of seasons 3 and 4 and season 6. It has the same maturity and plotlines as season 4, while it has the same meta humour and social commentary as season 6. And one thing I appreciate as well is that it has a less harsh version of the season 2 lighting. I like the season 2 lighting, but I've always thought it looked too harsh, if you know what I mean. It's as if every single episode takes place at 6 PM or 6 AM. But I think season 7 has a better version of it where it's like softer but still has that warm cozy lighting that everyone loved from before. But it just looks warm now rather than light, and I just think, yeah, it's a better version of the season 2 lighting, and I would be very happy if the rest of the season has that as well. I seem to be very good at going on to new topics. One thing you'll never hear me say is without further ado, because with me, there is always a do. So, the burger. For starters, I'll say that thanks to Matthew McKenna, I've seen this episode twice, but in general this is a review of the season based on one watch. I'll watch it again later if I have more to add. I will absolutely add it into a future video I have planned. I'm seeing a lot of negativity surrounding this episode. People specifically on Reddit saying that political messaging is too in your face and like it was pandering, but I completely disagree. I don't think this episode was anything special or anything, and I know I shouldn't be listening to Reddit, but listen. They have dedicated fandom spots. But I think this episode was quite similar to ones like The Money, The Worst, and The Candidate. I don't think anything in this episode was any more pandery than those three, and 2 of those episodes I just listed are pretty well received in the fandom as well. The Candidate in particular is my favourite episode in the show, and that's very, very political. The whole episode is a commentary on climate change and a parody of the 2016 election, and they use a lot of chronically online political terms to make fun of right-wingers. I barely see anyone have a problem with that episode. But for some reason, when the burger makes jokes about corporate greed, women are being underpaid, and the punchline of the episode being to literally eat the rich because he's a burger, it's too much. I thought the punchline was hilarious. That was the highlight of the episode in my opinion. I saw someone say when Larry said Mr. Bilderberger says he pays his female employees 30% less, I was done. And of all the jokes to be mad about, I don't know why you're so mad about the joke that has literally been made before. It's not like it's harmful, it's a joke based on reality, and they've made that exact joke before in The Worst with Gumball and Darwin's plotline, and how there was a literal invisible barrier that only rich men could pass, stopping women from rising to higher positions. And they also made a very similar joke at the start of The Parents, and it's one of the most iconic clips I've been seeing going around on Instagram, so I don't know why that one in particular is being received so poorly. I love the references to uncanny AI advertisements. I fully expected them to do jokes like that, but I'm so glad they made fun of AI. We do not support generative AI here. Anyway, yeah, this was a decent episode. Nothing special, but like, it's their first episode in 6 years. The start of the season is warming up to the rest, so I'm okay with that. I'm adding a tier list in last minute. I thought it would be a fun idea to do this at the end of all of the different episode reviews. This part is unscripted, so yeah, I'm just gonna go through these quite quickly at the end. Well, the first one's the burger. You saw my review of it. It was a decent episode. I would say it's better than inoffensive, so I'm gonna put the burger in cute. Moving on to the next episode. The Assistant was a good episode. I liked Ori. I liked how she was a parody of like ChatGPT and how Nicole's relationship with her was shown to be super unhealthy. I loved the callbacks to the Fury with Nicole's initial design in the VR world. Also, I'm not gonna lie, the VR world looked like Nintendo Land to me. I've not seen too many people talk about this episode other than, oh my god, Toxic Yuri, and talking about the lesbian AI chatbot, which, yeah, sounds about right. Ori definitely came across to me like she was supposed to be romantically interested in Nicole. I really liked this episode, actually. I still wouldn't put it in really good, but I would put it above the burger. So, you know what? I think I'm gonna move the burger down, and then I'm gonna put the Assistant in cute. The Distance. This episode. Oh boy. Just so you know, I have a lot written in the script for this part. I'm gonna be yapping for a bit. This episode has a lot of criticism on Reddit in particular, and it's definitely warranted. This is one of the cases where I don't think the show was always like that though, as a valid excuse. Have you seen this episode? It basically treats Gumball and Darwin's relationship like a romantic one, like they're on a break or something. Friendly reminder, they're adoptive brothers. They've done these parallels before and it was always weird. I've never liked it, but like, I guess you kind of get used to it and it's not that bad, but that's its own problem in and of itself. In this episode, it was something. There's too many incest jokes this season. There's no sugarcoating it. I mean, Gumball asking if Darwin was cheating on him. Darwin saying Gumball was so romantic. Weird. Genuinely weird. One thing I will say though, maybe it's just me, maybe it's just Reddit, because I've not really seen anyone talk about this part anywhere else, but the scene everyone's freaking out about, I don't think was that bad. Or like, bad at all. Is the scene where they're texting from their separate rooms since they can't talk in person anymore, and Darwin's like, actually I want to go to sleep, and Gumball starts freaking out because of his attachment issues, and I was like, this scene is pretty real. Me and my sister used to yap all the time at night when we shared a room, and we've definitely texted instead from our own rooms at night before. This is perfectly fine, and like, I'm also quite bad with attachment issues. Like, I'm really clingy with my friends, although I try to keep it to myself because I don't want to like make my issues anyone else's problem, but like, that entire scene I was just like, this is me for real. And some people for some reason have their head in about 7 gutters at once and are comparing the scene to them doing phone stuff, if you catch my drift, and like, what? I genuinely have no idea how they can see it that way, but maybe I'm just too asexual for this? I have no idea. Someone said I must be 12 if I didn't immediately understand, and I'm still confused. Anyway, of all the scenes to pick a problem with, I definitely wouldn't be going for that one. There's worse scenes in that episode, in my opinion. Never mind the rest of the show. But yeah, overall, this episode wasn't the best. It's definitely my least favourite of the bunch. I really wish they'd stop with the incest jokes and treat Gumball and Darwin's relationship like a really close friendship, because it is one. They could start making jokes about how they're so insanely close, like what they were doing at the start of the episode, where they're almost impossible to separate to the point where they're practically the same person instead of using the word romantic. See, that's the thing as well. If they had only said the cheating line, I'd have less of a problem, Because sometimes friends say that to each other in a jokey way, like, oh my god, are you cheating on me with other friends? But when it's paired with everything else, it just feels weird, you know? A much better example of an episode like this would be The Silence from season 6, which is about them separating and how closely bonded they are, but it has none of the incest, and instead it's just a really good episode. That's one of my favourite ones. I don't know what they were thinking with the distance. Anyway, moving on. I don't want to talk about this episode anymore. We don't need to go over this episode. You already know how I feel. That's it. That's that. I thought The Thing was a fun episode. This was very classic Gumball to me. I thought Richard was so cute. Like, he's really trying to remember what the thing is. He really reminded me of my character Bob in this episode, I'm not gonna lie, although that makes sense since he is inspired by him. The punchline of the episode was comedy gold, by the way. The Thing being a knight for just Nicole and Richard without the kids or Granny Jojo, and he made that happen by accident by leaving them stuck in the bus station. Genuinely hilarious. I think that was the best reaction I had to any moment in the new season, I'm not gonna lie. A cute episode. I like this episode, yeah. The Butts is an interesting episode. I don't hate it, like it's not the worst thing I've ever watched, but I definitely don't love it. I don't have loads to say, I don't think, but I didn't really like the end of it. Like, was there not a whole Glee episode about how weird / wrong it is for a teacher to perform like that in front of his students? No, like, it's just weird to me. One complaint I have seen a lot was about the amount of butt jokes this season, and unlike the incest jokes, while these have also always been there, butt jokes are harmless. I'm not the biggest fan of them, but sometimes they're genuinely funny, and Gumball has a mix of both. Yeah, it's a whole episode of butt jokes, but they've even done that before, so I don't really care. This is also the episode that had that one scene in the mirror and Gumball saw like an anime humanoid version of himself, which made me laugh a lot. Because I've been thinking about redoing my human designs for a little while now, and it felt like this scene was calling out to me. Ruined by the ending. It's not the worst episode I've ever seen, right? But I don't know, I didn't like the end of the episode. The rest of the episode was fine. The episode in general, like the rest of it would go into inoffensive. It's a pretty fine episode. I didn't like the end of it. I don't have much to say about the traffic, but I thought it was a really cute Anais episode. I've not seen anyone discuss this episode at all, actually, weird enough. I guess it's the most inoffensive episode. The only scene I've seen anyone mention is the one with Gumball and Penny, which, by the way, I loved that scene. I really like the relationship this season. Anyway, I'm glad they finally took Anais to Daisyland, and how the moral of the story was basically the real Daisyland was the friends we made along the way, because that's so funny. I like this episode. This episode was cute. I think I'm gonna put that maybe above these two. I think it was a cute episode. I like Anais episodes. The Astrological. Oh boy. I actually really like this one, and I might spend the longest rambling about this one. Spoiler alert, I did. This when I wrote this part, this took up an entire third of my script. It was like the shippening, another episode I love, but like a completely different concept. I tend to really like episodes that are commentaries on fandom culture, especially in this show, because it genuinely always feels like they're one of us and joking with us, rather than making fun of us and making us feel bad. Like, their fandomish episodes always come across to me as fan appreciation episodes over anything else, which I really love. I'm confused on one thing though, and that's... were the people in Mr. Small matched up actually a pair written in the stars? Or was that also part of the whole radioactive crystal gas leak, whatever? I like the animation in that one scene where Mr. Small looked like some sort of celestial being. And I like the scenes with Gumball and Penny. As I said before, I genuinely really enjoyed the paintball this season. Of course, me being the Leslie fan I am, I thoroughly enjoyed that scene at the start when Mr. Small was predicting who his partner was, and it was himself. Leslie times Leslie. And then someone asked how does that work, and he flippin' mitosis. He duplicated and then started making out with himself for the entirety of the episode. Hilarious. Like, you can just spot him in the background randomly. It's great. One thing I'm a little bit disappointed about is that they didn't have the... I don't know the word I'm looking for, but they made every couple a boy and a girl, except for Leslie with himself. The pairings were random and they were influenced by radioactivity, and some of the characters aren't even in relationships and they haven't shied away from same-sex pairings before. They had plenty of those in the shippening with Mr. Small and Larry and Nicole and Yuki, stuff like that. And then they had that one section of the love with the gay stick figures. I feel like them putting Leslie with himself was their way of doing that without going all in, and I just think it's a little bit disappointing. To give the benefit of the doubt though, Maybe they want their first real queer ship to not be undone by the end of the episode again. Who knows? I mean, they've literally put a pride flag on the show 2 separate times. I don't think this is the kind of show that would generally shy away from that. When they first got to Leslie, I was nervous because he's been queer-coded for so long, literally since season 1. I feel like this is going to turn into a Leslie ramble now, so bear with me. I can yap about him for ages. I wrote this one article in Fandom Wiki when I was 16, which got popular, and it's still the top result when you Google search for any queerness in Gumball, which is pretty cool. I told you I was big in this fandom. I'll link it in the description if you want to read it. I don't know how much I agree with what I wrote. I actually have some things to add to it after the new season, but I'm going to talk about the Lizzy Parts here. In season 1, in The Pressure, which is the very first episode I ever saw, by the way, he's in the treehouse with the girls. He's part of their group, and all of them make up boyfriends on the screen, except for him and Penny. But you know what Leslie does do on screen? He confesses to making one up. He says, yeah, I made him up too. Which you can hear if you listen to everyone confessing at the same time. Quite loudly. In The Flower, in season 2, Gumball is jealous of Leslie because he thinks he's dating Penny. Which is an idea Carrie laughs at. Gee, I wonder why. And then at the end of the episode, Gumball finds out that they're actually cousins, and the conversation about that goes, what are you talking about? We're not dating, we're cousins. Wait, did he just say he was your cousin? Well, duh. Everyone knows. Well, duh. I didn't. And then Leslie says, there's a lot of things you don't know about me, Gumball. And he goes, oh. Implying, there's more reasons than one why we're not dating. Like, yeah, we're cousins, but you do know I'm also gay, right? Like, you get me? And that's something else Gumball has missed entirely. Then there's the scene in season 3 where Gumball and Darwin frame Alan for cheating on Carmen. By the way, I will be talking about them in a bit because I have something to say about those two as well. In the scene, Darwin is playing Alan and he goes around kissing everyone while Gumball is collecting pictures, and everyone's disgusted except for Leslie, who's like really visibly happy about being kissed by Alan. What else is there? In season 4, there's the upgrade where Bobert's parody of Surrey and his system is all messed up. And Darwin gets frustrated and speaks absolute gibberish, which Bobert's system interprets as kick Leslie's butt and marry him to Alan. Which, you know, neither of them actually oppose, like, at all. Leslie turns to Banana Joe and says, you had your chance, implying he'd been waiting around for Joe to ask him out or something. And then he walks away with Alan, who's also overall pretty happy about this situation, to be honest. There's also the fact that so often his character references queer pop culture. For example, in the drama, he quotes RuPaul's Drag Race. In the Petals, he does his own drag show. There's also the scene in the spin-off The Gumball Chronicles where Gumball tells Leslie that he's the best kid in school. And Leslie sounds all frustrated and says, oh hush now, that's Alan. And that's really flipping cute, I'm not gonna lie. Basically what I'm saying is that Leslie is such a heavily queer-coded character, and I was nervous for what they were gonna do when they called his name for the crystal. Like, not that he couldn't be bi or anything, of course he could, but like, but when everyone else was a boy or a girl pairing already, I was like, please, 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 don't do this with everyone, including Leslie. And then they kind of didn't by pairing him with himself, which again was really funny, but I kind of wish they'd gone more in with it. That said though, I'm probably the biggest Leslie shipper in the fandom, which is something I can say with near confidence. If Leslie was paired with someone who wasn't Alan, I would probably be annoyed, so maybe I shouldn't complain, because obviously that's not going to happen. Speaking of Alan, I'm getting back to what I wanted to say about Alan and Carmen. If not for this episode, I wouldn't have thought anything about it, but they didn't interact this season at all. They were both desperate to get their hands on that crystal as well to see who their love written in the stars was, and they didn't do it together, nor did they apologise to each other at the end like Darwin and Carrie did when everyone went back to normal. After this episode, I was specifically looking out for them interacting, but it just didn't happen, and I'm thinking, did they break up? They have broken up before, and they weren't dating in season 1, like it is a possibility technically, but it didn't happen on screen. Maybe they'll interact later. I promise this isn't just my lesson bias, by the way. I am well aware that despite their many interesting interactions, they're never going to be a thing in canon. I'm genuinely just wondering what's up with Carmen and Alan because I got the overall vibe that they broke up. Anyway, I also think it's funny that Alan ended up with Miss Sammy in that episode, like how they were fake dating in the storm and they were campaign partners in the Gumball Chronicles. Nice continuity there. What else happened in this episode so I can talk about other characters instead of just my favourites who weren't relevant at all? I really liked the paintball plot of them trying to resist whatever was going on, and I loved Penny's character just in general in this one. As I said before, this season has a lot of really good paintball episodes and scenes. I think because of that, in the Carwin scenes though, I'm mixing up certain parts of this episode and the letter with the other in my head. In general, by the way, I love the school episodes. Those tend to be my favourites, and this obviously was one. Anyway, I reckon I've spent long enough yapping in this section, so let's move on. The astrological. Well, you saw from my ramble, I really like this episode. I'm not gonna add extra to this part of the script. I'm gonna... Moving on. The The cheerleader was a great episode. I've seen people complaining about the similarities between new episodes and certain older ones, but this one is clearly an intentional callback and it's such a sweet one. Its climax is a callback to The Meddler from season 1, which is the episode where Gumball tries out to be a cheerleader to impress Penny, but does really badly, which ends up saving Penny's chances of staying on the team. And the cheerleader, Richard, tries out to be a cheerleader and to prove himself, and the sequence plays out extremely similarly. The same characters plus more are there, the people judging are Mr. Small and Principal Brown, once again. And once again, Mr. Small is really serious about it to the point of yelling at the people trying out, even though he's usually a pretty calm person, which is hilarious to watch both times. And again, a really nice callback to that. Granny Jojo shows up halfway through Richard's audition and he gets nervous, but he ends up doing extremely well. And Gumball and Darwin even join in to back him up. Nicole and Anais are there too. It's so cute, you guys. I love this episode. Richard successfully does exactly what Gumball attempted to do in The Meddler, and it just reminded me how much I love Richard and how much I appreciate family episodes like that, where they're there to cheer each other on and back each other up. What a good episode, genuinely. One of the best ones of the season. Honestly, I think the cheerleader was a really good episode. I'm gonna put it in really good. The boring. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't pay full attention when I was watching this one, probably because of how much Gumball and Darwin zoned out, but I did enjoy this one, especially the end where Molly and Tina mentioned their dinosaur culture and how they're kind of bonded that way. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of ship it. I think it's cute. I'm also glad Molly has another episode, and this is the first Tina episode since season 1. She genuinely doesn't get episodes ever, so this was really cool. I'd love to see them interact more. The boring was fine. I don't remember it enough to put it any higher than inoffensive. The next episode, The Teacher, was a good episode too. I'm glad we got another Miss Amadian episode. She always has good episodes in my opinion, and it was nice to have Sal left them referred to by name for, I think, the first time. Anyway, I don't have much to say about this episode except for kind of the same thing. I don't actually remember it that well. It was decent. The Appleton episode I've been seeing a lot of hate for because it references so many TikTok trends and modern memes, but like, this is the kind of episode where you really just need to expect that, because what on earth do you mean you didn't expect that? The show always references memes and pop culture and uses whatever slang is modern at the time, and generally episodes about pop culture go all in with that. I thought this was a decent episode, and I liked the commentary on microtrends and how quickly they come and go. And I like the joke about how everyone lost interest in ClickSap when their parents joined the app. I feel like that's a very classic social media episode trope, but I haven't seen that in a while and I thought it was funny. Also, I was watching the show in the Elmore Plus Discord server, and when they were talking about how Elmore Plus wasn't cool anymore, everyone in the chat was like, oh no, do we need to change the server name? Does it need to be ClickSap now? And obviously it didn't get changed because Elmore Plus is a much better name, but I thought that was really funny. There's gonna be a couple, there's a couple inoffensive episodes back to back. There's nothing really special about these. You know, the entrance was a surprisingly good episode. It felt like a very obvious callback to the party, but it was also a very regular show in my opinion. I was disappointed that Rachel didn't appear, but I can't lie, I didn't really expect her to. I've seen people on Reddit get mad about this episode because it's very obviously supposed to parallel a drug trip of some kind, but again, this is the kind of joke they've done before. Has it taken up this much screen time before? No, but they have literally done this before. The question literally starts as a drug trip, and they end up waking up in the park with Gumball dressed as a ballerina in the fountain, and Darwin is handcuffed to a lamppost with a tattoo. Like, this new episode isn't worse than that. And then the start of the end is always in those adult joke compilations because they look stoned. It's fine. Also, the entire plot with Tobias throwing this party with the obvious intention to steal people's girlfriends, and with it basically ending with a bully showing up to his house in disguise as a pretty girl, and then the rest of the gang going behind them to like beat him up is really funny. I also really enjoyed the interactions between Penny and Carrie. That was really cute, and I'm glad this season is actually giving us content of them together. This is like the first time since The Flower in season 2. 2012 was the last time they interacted on screen. Like, Gumball and Penny could have been born and lived their entire lives plus 1 year between now when Penny and Carrie last interacted. That is insane. Anyway, yeah, I'm glad we got that. I'm gonna put the entrance in cute. Obviously the word cute does not exactly fit the description of this episode. However, I think I enjoyed it, and cute is a word that I will use randomly. I'll be like, oh my god, cute. So I use the word cute like that. The later! I really like the paintball scenes once again, and I'm glad we got a Carwin episode. They're really cute. I love Darwin so much. He's my favourite character, so I'm always up for a Darwin episode. Overall, I really enjoyed this episode. That is until the end! Jesus Christ, what was that? Usually it's not a problem at all if a character kissed Darwin or vice versa. The only time it was a problem before was back in season 2 in Halloween when they weren't even dating yet. Why on earth did she need to possess someone to kiss him? And why did she pick Gumball? And why was it animated like that? And for so long, what on earth was that? I would have rated this episode an 8 out of 10 or something if it didn't end like that. I did not need to see Gumball and Darwin kissing like that. And then I know they immediately after that made Gumball say like, we'd better find you a better vessel because I don't want to be doing that for the rest of your life or at your wedding or anything. And then both him and Darwin gagged because they found that idea disgusting. But it was so drawn out. Like, yeah, we know that kiss was really gross, but look, we find it gross too. Look how gross the characters find it. They're even gagging at the concept. I know they had episodes like the dress and stuff before, but back then the joke was everyone in the show, including his own brother, was stupid enough to think that Gumball is a different person in that dress and they're all in love with him. Not their brothers and they're kissing. Isn't that weird? Even in the matchmaker where Terry was like, okay, what's up with you guys? After going through everyone Darwin had kissed, most of the examples with Gumball were like mouth to mouth, an accident, or like a familial kiss on the cheek or something. The joke in that episode was that it was incest because it was different, because it was just a compilation of older jokes. This new episode feels weird. I didn't like it. It's honestly my least favourite ending to any episode on the show. I'm really disappointed in this episode. Also, this is the same episode where Gumball called Darwin a snack in a flirtatious way, and like if that was the only joke, I wouldn't really care. Like, that does feel like the kind of joke they would have done before. But just paired with the rest of this episode and with the distance previously in the season, there's too many incest jokes this season. I want to rewatch this episode with the knowledge of the end without being completely thrown off to see if the rest of the episode is still decent, but I don't know. The storyboard artist for this episode. Guess what other episode they storyboarded? They did the flipping distance because of course they did. And they only did one other episode outside of those two. I'm wondering if the episodes are as weird as they are thanks to their storyboards, or if they were just given an unfortunate set of scripts to work with. I don't know which one I'm hoping for. One thing I did like about the end, genuinely, was the callback to the ghost. I feel like there's a lot of season 1 callbacks. I mean, what have I said? The party, the meddler, the ghost, I'm sure there's more. I really like that part of the new season, and I hope the second half gives us more references like that. I know we're also getting a Carwin 2-parter in the second half of the season, so I guess we'll just need to hope that one's way better than whatever this was. The letter. You know exactly where this is going. This tier was made for this episode. Actually, it was made because I knew that both of these episodes were going to go on here, but the letter is significantly worse. The ending, like, I would almost put the letter down to bad, but I genuinely enjoyed the rest of the episode until the end, so I can't put it in bad because the rest of the episode isn't bad. Ruined by the ending? Absolutely. Hated that. You heard me like speed talking just there. The Gut was a weird episode, but I did really like the fact that it was a bonding episode between Richard and Anais. If you know anything about me, you know I really like family dynamics and how they're explored, so when there's an episode exploring specifically the familial relationship between two characters, I will enjoy it. I'm not gonna lie, I genuinely almost cried when Richard showed Anais his painting. It was so flippin' cute. This was a decent episode overall. I don't think it was anything special plot-wise, but character-wise it was a really good one. I think we've got another inoffensive episode. This was... it's like bordering on cute. I do like this episode, but I don't love it. I don't know. It was fine. I know they've done this kind of plot twice before, but genuinely I enjoyed the Wrinkle a lot. It was like a cross between the painting and the brain where the Watersons all got their own separate plots working through their own issues individually. I don't fully remember what all of the plots were, but I really liked Darwin's one. He was so cute. I was giggling and kicking my feet through a whole compilation of him being quote unquote tortured while he had the cutest little face the whole time. He didn't have a single care in the world. I love Darwin so much. I liked this episode. I don't remember it that well, but I remember enjoying it. So I'm gonna put it at the bottom of cute. Actually, I think I'm gonna put it above... I think I'm gonna put it above the thing. Now for the Gourmet. I like this one a lot. I love how over time Masami has changed from the spoiled rich kid who thinks she's better than everyone to now she's the rich kid who's kinda bored of her family's antics and like, yeah, we're rich. Can we do normal things instead of flaunting it all the time? Like, I really enjoy her character. This season has called back to this episode multiple times, but here it was more prevalent than usual, and they had like a full callback to the Fury, where Nicole and Yuki were about to start anime fighting again, and that was iconic. If there's one show that I think is able to reference its own success in a tasteful way multiple times, it's definitely this one. I love how absurd Yuki is in this episode and how Gumball was literally just doing this to get some mac and cheese. Like, honestly, he's so real for that. And I'm glad he was able to get it at the end because the Yoshida family chef quit his job. Also, it took me embarrassingly long to realise that the chef was a reference to Gordon Ramsay. I swear every show references Gordon Ramsay. I don't know how I never realised. The Gourmet was cute. I really enjoyed that one. I'm gonna put that at the top of cute. I'm glad we got another Mr. Robinson episode with the pool. As someone who gets warm insanely easily and who wishes pools were normal here in Scotland, this episode was such a mood. When it's hot outside, you really do just want to jump into a big pool and cool down. I also like that this was another rivalry episode with Richard and Mr. Small.
Richard and Mr. Small.
I feel like we haven't had one of those in a while. Me and the rest of the stream chat loved that one scene with Mrs. Robinson as well, where she pretended to be super nice and like she's the nice one of that household, only to immediately turn around and show that, yeah, she's pure evil. And then Mr. Robinson was laughing his head off in the living room, like, they honestly believe she was the missing reason in this relationship? Yeah, right. That scene really tickled me, I loved it. I think the pool can go between the burger and the boring. The portrait was a really silly episode. I enjoyed it. Every single time the characters turned their heads to look at the door, I swear, it was never not funny. I loved how everyone showed up, like, from the extended family. I kind of already figured from the trailer, but I thought it was funny that Daniel and Mary showed up together, but they said, yeah, so like, we broke up off screen, and Mary brought her boyfriend while Daniel was like, Jesus Christ, I cannot deal with this. Can I move in with you guys? And to be honest, I like the commentary on the age gap relationship between Mary and her new boyfriend, who went to the same school as Nicole and was a couple years below her. Like, yeah, that is really flippin' weird. I always like when Frankie shows up, and by the way, I never would have caught this reference myself because I've never watched what it was referencing. But Frankie did a thing that was a reference to a character in another show played by the same actor. And I love when shows do stuff like that. Like, they show appreciation for their actors and their other work. It's really sweet. I like Rich Fulcher, by the way. He's also in Disenchantment, which is my second favourite show of all time, and his characters in that are great. This is an extremely niche reference, by the way, and I don't think anyone will know what I'm talking about, but this episode really reminded me of one episode of the My Little Pony YouTube series, The Perfect Family. The episode was called Santa Photos, and they literally had the exact same plot. Like, I'm not joking. It was all I could think about the whole time. I like that the message at the end was basically, all cops are bad. Like, Frankie ran away before taking the photo, and the cops, one of which Frankie was dating, instead of being useful, decided, oh well, let's just arrest you guys instead, because of course they did. I particularly like when this show criticises the police because they did have one propaganda episode in season 3 called The Law, and I feel like they didn't intend it to be that when they first made it, but that's definitely what it was. So whenever they criticise the cops, I feel like they're making up for that. Most of their social commentary is done through jokes. Like, obviously it's supposed to just be a funny jab or a good mannered joke depending on what the topic is. Although sometimes they are good at being completely serious while they're being funny, like in my favourite episode, The Candidate. I like this show's ability to commentate, basically. This episode was funny. I'm gonna put this above The Assistant. I really like the portrait. The Claim was an okay episode. It was nothing special and probably in my bottom 5. I've seen people complain about the butt jokes again, and like, I don't really mind. I just find it a bit boring. If I'm doing a quicker rewatch, I'm probably skipping this one, but there's nothing really wrong with it. I wouldn't be mad watching it again. The Claim, the bottom of Inoffensive. I didn't love it. It was fine. The Amadian was my favourite episode of the season. It was kind of everything I wanted out of the episode. Like, I knew this was a Penny episode and I knew it was about her shell. The only place I've seen negative opinions about this episode is on Reddit, and to be honest, I'm not even going to mention this time. I'm just going to ignore that because I really like this one. I like that the episode started with Gumball and Penny in the garage about to do karaoke. That was cute. And then Patrick showed up, surprise surprise. I think they did well with this episode, both making the shell explicitly a family tradition thing, while also being able to keep the allegory of some other things, like coming out of your shell as being a trans allegory, or an allegory for leaving a religion, or for literally just coming out of your shell and finding yourself separately from how you've been raised. And I've seen people say that this episode felt to them what it's like to be from a conservative family while having different values yourself. And yeah, I think that Penny as a character can encompass so many different experiences, and I think that's really cool that they have a character like that. I also think the scene with Gumball in the bathroom saying things like, why can't she just go back into her shell and everything would be easier, was a good character moment. Like, obviously he shouldn't have said that, that's not right. But it felt very in character, and he had some character development after that and stood up for Penny at the end. I also loved that her shell didn't really fit anymore. Like, it physically fit. It was the right size, but it was cracked and you could see her eyes through it, unlike before. It reminded me of like when a trans person who's been on HRT for a while pretends to still be cis around their family. Like, you can tell that's not who she is anymore, but she's pretending like it is so that she's like them, if that makes sense. I will say, I do wish that the conclusion wasn't something Penny was in on. I do wish that she didn't know her family was okay with her being out of her shell, and we got to see that development on screen rather than that being a thing that's happened off screen, and we just need to like witness it like Gumball did. And like the whole thing being a prank on Gumball to make him think they didn't accept Penny was strange, but it didn't ruin the episode or anything. As I said, this is my favourite one. But I do wish they'd gone with something else. I was also so glad that we got to see all of Penny's family out of their shells without them being permanently out. Like, I don't really want Patrick, Judith and Polly to be out of their shells, but I'm glad we got to see what they looked like underneath. Or at least what Patrick looked like. I was struggling to find Judith and Polly in the crowd. Based on the transformation, we can assume they're pink and purple respectively, like how Patrick was red and Penny was yellow. So that narrows it down a little bit at least. I wish we'd gotten to see Leslie in this episode since, you know, he's Penny's cousin. But he must not be on that side of the family, which makes sense. He doesn't wear a shell. It was also cool to see the cultural influences from real life that they used for the Fitzgerald family. Like, I noticed a lot of Celtic influences. I mean, for an obvious one, they used bagpipes in multiple episodes. I think at least one of the family members had an Irish accent. People have also pointed out Scandinavian influences, I think, in their clothes, and I think that's pretty cool. Like, they've made their own culture in the show, but they pulled from real life inspiration, likely from the cultures of people who work on the show, because it's made in the UK, so there's for sure going to be a bunch of Celts working on the show at least. And also, I personally really like seeing Scottish references. Please reference Scottish culture. I think I want to move the app. Go there. The pool's not that interesting. And then the Amadian is my favourite one of the season. Shocker that one's going in the best tier. This is the finished tier list. I hope you enjoyed my ranking of this. Overall, this is a good season so far. I know I've had my complaints and my rants about a certain 2 episodes, but as long as the rest of the season doesn't contain any episodes like that, it's okay. I'm super excited for the second half to come out. I'm especially excited for the season finale, which we know is going to be a Rob episode, and I'm so hyped for the Void plot to continue because what on earth was that about? I hope they reference the painting Banana Barbara made in the Oracle. There was one episode in particular with a really good song, but I cannot for the life of me remember which one it was. I want to say it was the Wrinkle. I know it was all of the Waters and Sing, but I've got nothing, I can't remember. I also love the amount of flashbacks this season. It was almost comically excessive, but all of them were a delight to watch, so I'm not actually complaining at all. Principal Brown in particular was so cute, oh my god. This is my longest video script so far at over 7,000 words. I spent over a week on this, like I started writing this a day or two after I've watched the season, and I don't think I have footage for the video yet. I definitely could have waited to finish this, but I would rather write this while the episodes are still fresh in my mind. I also have another Gumball video in the works which I hope to get finished in time for the international release of the new episodes, but that might take a while, so we'll see. Also, I've been talking for an hour and a half. My throat is absolutely killing me. I'm so sorry if that's clear in the audio. Genuinely, I'm in pain. I'm like holding my throat with my hand. So please let me know your thoughts on the new season and how you think it compares to the first 6. I hope I'll see you again soon. So I'm gonna go get a drink. Goodbye.